엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Coming up on Arirang News. North Korea says, under its leader Kim Jong-un's guidance, the regime test-fired two of its newly developed Bulhwasan 3-31 missiles, coming just days after the first test of the weapon. 3 American troops were killed and more than 30 others injured in a drone strike in northeast Jordan. U.S. President Joe Biden has pledged to respond, blaming Iran-backed militias, while Tehran says it has no connection to the attack. From last Saturday, by paying around $50 a month, people can get unlimited transit pass in Seoul thanks to the city's climate card. We went out to see how people were finding it on the first day of its rollout. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with yet another cruise missile test by North Korea happening after days after the first test of the weapon. Pyongyang says it has test-fired its new strategic cruise missiles from a submarine this past weekend, adding that the regime's leader Kim Jong-un guided the launch. Our Choi Min-jung leads us off.
North Korea is believed to have fired several submarine-launched cruise missiles off its eastern coast on Sunday under the supervision of the regime's leader Kim Jong-un. State-run newspaper The Nodongshinmun reported Monday that the Bulhwasal 3-31 strategic cruise missiles were launched from a submarine. North Korea had test-fired this missile for the very first time from a ground launcher just 4 days before Sunday's launch. The missile is believed to be nuclear-capable. Kim Jong-un, who oversaw the launch, reportedly stressed that the Navy's nuclear armament is an urgent national agenda. According to the Nodongshinmun, the missiles launched on Sunday flew for 7,421 and 7,445 seconds before hitting preset island targets in the East Sea. Given that 2 flight times were reported, it appears that 2 missiles were fired. However, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff on Monday questioned the North's flight data.
We are weighing the possibility that the flight times claimed by North Korea were exaggerated. Additional information is being analyzed by South Korean and U.S. intelligence authorities.
If confirmed to be SLCMs, as North Korea claims, South Korea's military may face more difficulties detecting and responding to the launches, as the missiles fly very low to the ground. However, Bruce Bennett, defense researcher at RAND Corporation, says that North Korean submarines aren't going to survive in a conflict.
2 or 3 of them, depending upon what will fit on the submarine, would be a fairly serious threat in a surprise case. Much after that, probably before they can reload, that submarine would die in a war-fighting situation.
Experts also say the missiles are likely to have been launched from North Korea's new tactical nuclear attack submarine, dubbed Hero Kim-gun-ok, unveiled last September. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
The latest weapons test comes as North Korea continues to diversify its nuclear and missile programs and raise tensions in the region. Bae Eun-ji explains what's behind all this and how far its weapons development has come.
North Korea's cruise missile launch over the weekend is widely seen as an attempt to diversify its weapon systems, in line with its key military goals unveiled 3 years ago. Under a 5-year plan laid out at a Workers' Party Congress in early 2021, the North declared that it aims to develop 5 types of new weapons: tactical nuclear weapons, a new intercontinental ballistic missile, hypersonic gliding flight warheads, nuclear-powered submarines, and a reconnaissance satellite.
North Korea said the latest cruise missile test was conducted without considering the geopolitical situation, so it's likely that the regime's intention is to complete the 5 military tasks related to this new weapon on their own timeline.
Over the past year, the regime has been focusing on developing ballistic missiles, especially ICBMs that are capable of targeting the United States. They have been developing liquid fuel ICBMs such as the Hwasong-15 and Hwasong-17. Then for the first time in April 2023, it tested a new ICBM using solid fuel, the Hwasong-18. Pyongyang conducted a second test in July and then a third test last month. In both, the Hwasong-18 was launched at a high angle and flew 6,000 kilometers. This means that if the missile is launched at a normal angle, it will be able to travel over 10,000 kilometers, reaching the U.S. mainland. Earlier this month, the North also fired an intermediate-range ballistic missile, claiming that it was a successful test launch of a solid-fuel missile, carrying a hypersonic warhead. Hypersonic missiles are designed to travel at more than 5 times the speed of sound and often maneuver at relatively low altitudes, making them harder to detect. And intermediate-range missiles have a maximum range of 5,500 kilometers, which means they're capable of striking U.S. military bases in Guam or Okinawa in Japan.
North Korea wants it to appear that there are a wide range of threats that they could pose against South Korea and the United States, so that they're intimidating, so that they coerce us, they deter us from taking action against them.
배은지, Arirang News.
Now shifting gears to northeast Jordan, where 3 American troops were killed due to Sunday's deadly drone strike. U.S. President Joe Biden has pledged to respond, blaming Iran-backed militias, while Tehran says it has no connection to the attack. Our Song Yu-jin with the latest.
At least 3 U.S. service members were killed and more than 30 others were injured on Sunday after an unmanned aerial drone struck the Tower 22 base in northeast Jordan near the Syrian border.
We lost 3 brave souls in an attack on one of our bases. Yes. And I'd ask you for a moment of silence for all 3 of those fallen soldiers.
Washington blames Iran-backed militant groups. But citing Iran's permanent mission to the United Nations, state news agency IRNA reported that Tehran had nothing to do with the strike. In a statement issued by the White House earlier, President Biden said that while Washington is still gathering information, they know it was carried out by what were described as radical Iran-backed militant groups operating in Syria and Iraq. Mr. Biden also vowed to hold all those involved responsible. Also, the Islamic Resistance in Iraq, an umbrella organization of several Iran-backed militant groups in the country, has claimed responsibility for the attack. The group said it attacked a number of places along the Jordan-Syria border on Sunday, including a site near the U.S. base. As this marks the first time American soldiers have been killed by enemy fire in the Middle East since the Israel-Hamas war began last October, experts say Washington's response could be significant.
In that US casualties was always seen as a red line. This is the tipping point. So 3 US soldiers' deaths is important. It's not necessarily a tipping point into uncontrolled escalation between the United States and Iran, but it's another very dangerous step because, as I say, the US will have to respond even more strongly than it's done to previous attacks.
Considering these circumstances, the scale is expected to be aggressive and powerful.
The options right now could be more intense strikes on some of the Iranian militias that have been launching these attacks, particularly in Syria, but also in Iraq. What I think we can expect is a more, as I said, broad and intense strikes on some of these Iranian-backed militias that we haven't quite seen yet before.
Fears are growing over a widening conflict in the Middle East as the Israel-Hamas war is soon to enter its 5th month. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the U.S. and China will hold their first working-level meeting in Beijing to resume their cooperation on tackling drugs. This follows their high-level meeting in Bangkok last week on security. Our Yoon Jin has the details.
Senior officials from the U.S. and China will meet in Beijing on Tuesday to launch what Washington is calling a task force to resume formal bilateral cooperation on counter-narcotics of fentanyl, a drug responsible for a deadly overdose epidemic in the United States. During the recent Davos Forum in Switzerland, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken mentioned the seriousness of synthetic opioids being the #1 killer of Americans aged between 18 and 49. Beijing had suspended all assistance with the issue in 2022, but it was during their November summit in San Francisco where Chinese President Xi Jinping and American President Joe Biden agreed that the two rival global powers should work together to stem the deadly opioid crisis. Tuesday's meeting comes following the latest discussions between U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi on Friday and Saturday in Bangkok, Thailand, where the two sides had, according to China's foreign ministry, candid, substantive, and fruitful strategic exchanges on bilateral, regional, and global issues, including those concerning North Korea, Russia's war in Ukraine, the Middle East, the South China Sea, and Myanmar. According to a White House report, concerns were raised regarding the recent testing of weapons in North Korea, as well as the growing relationship between the North and Russia and what might reflect on Kim Jong-un's intentions. The two diplomats also discussed the importance of maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. A senior U.S. administration official said U.S. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping are expected to hold phone talks this spring as part of efforts to responsibly manage tensions between their countries. Talks are expected sometime in the spring to discuss risks posed by advanced forms of AI, as well as hopes of resuming higher levels of military-to-military channels. Washington also expects Secretary of State Antony Blinken to travel to China at some point this year. 이은진, Arirang News.
On the local front, starting last Saturday, by paying around $50 a month, people can get unlimited transit pass here in Seoul thanks to the city's climate card. Our Park Gun-woo went out to see how people were finding it on the first day of its rollout.
Unlimited access to public transportation is now available in the capital. The Seoul metropolitan government started a new 6-month pilot project on Saturday that allows limitless public transport access with its so-called climate card as a means to cope with climate change and lower household expenses. The card is based on the D-ticket issued in Germany. According to the metropolitan government, it is expecting 13,000 fewer cars to be used and a cut of 32,000 tons in greenhouse gases emitted annually through this project. The climate card allows people to ride subways or buses within Seoul for 62,000 Korean won, or a little under $50 per month, if downloaded to a mobile phone, and even public bikes if users add around $2 more.
2만 원 정도 절약되는 걸로 알고 있어요. 교통비가 고정적으로 나가니까 좀 좋을 것 같다 생각을 하고 있습니다.
The card is valid on subway lines within the Seoul region, including numbers 1 to 9, Sillim and Suinbundang, among others, although some are excluded, such as the Shinbundang line, due to different fare structures. Users will need to pay an additional charge to subway employees when traveling to stations not included in the pilot project. Most intra-capital bus routes are also part of the project. Green and blue buses heading to places outside Seoul are included if the bus license plate was issued by the Seoul local government. The transport passes can be bought at offices inside subway stations or nearby convenience stores. I also bought this card, the climate card, for 3,000 won. You just need to charge it using this machine just like any other transportation card. Android phone users can get the mobile version of the card by downloading the T-Money application. After sales began on January 23rd, nearly 200,000 cards were sold within 3 days, leading to many subway stations and convenience stores running out due to their popularity. And more than 70,000 people used the card on the first day. But some spoke about the need for improvement.
광역버스나 지하철 여러 가지 노선도 다 이용 가능하게 하면은 많은 사람들이 더 이용할 것 같아요.
Meanwhile, Seoul said it would do its best to remove any inconveniences found during the climate card pilot project. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
Also here in South Korea, Sunday closures for large retailers have been scrapped, and our Shin-Young has more on how the public is responding to this.
It was the fourth Sunday of the month, but a large supermarket in Seoul was bustling with shoppers. Seochogu district in Seoul has decided that big retailers have to close on alternate Wednesdays instead of Sundays, following the scrapping of mandatory weekend closing days for large supermarkets. This was announced during an open debate held by South Korea's Office for Government Policy Coordination last week, and consumers are welcoming the change.
There were times I arrived and found the store was closed. Now it's great that it opens every Sunday.
Since I'm working, I only have time to shop on weekends. Coming to the store late on weekdays is tough, so I used to come once every 2 weeks, which was inconvenient.
On the other hand, traditional market merchants are deeply concerned as the number of customers visiting the market may drop.
There will probably be fewer people at street markets when large supermarkets open during weekends. When it's too cold or hot, many people would prefer to shop indoors.
Before the change, large supermarkets had to close their stores for 2 days a month on weekends, for example, on the second and fourth Sunday, which had become the norm in many regions. Large stores are still not allowed to operate at all between midnight and 10 a.m. However, the ban on online deliveries during those hours has been lifted. Originally, the regulations were introduced to protect small and traditional markets. However, the landscape of market competition has shifted from supermarkets competing with small markets to offline versus online shopping. 신하영, 아리랑 뉴스.
Moving on, the horror film Sleep, starring the late actor Lee Sun-kyun, has won the Best Picture award at an annual French horror film festival. The debut feature by Jason Yu was awarded the Grand Prix at the Gérardmer International Fantastic Film Festival on Sunday. The festival has honored the best horror, mystery, and sci-fi films since 1994. Previously, 장화 홍련 by Kim Ji-yoon and Bed Evil by Jang Chul-soo won the same top prize in 2004 and 2011, respectively. Sleep tells the story of newlyweds whose lives are turned upside down when the husband exhibits bizarre behavior while asleep. The film was also screened at the Cannes Critics Week section at the 2023 Cannes Film Festival. Now over in Gangwon, young athletes from around the world continue chasing their dreams. To cheer them on, 3 legendary South Korean Olympic medalists, including figure skating champion Kim Yeona, share their know-how on achieving their goals. Our Choi Soo-young tells our story.
Grow together, shine forever. In Korea's eastern province of Gangwon, where the Winter Youth Olympics are taking place, 3 legendary Korean Olympic gold medalists gathered with the teens on Sunday to share their youthful experiences. In their presentations, they provided practical advice and hopeful messages on how to overcome limitations and achieve their goals. Kim Yeona, the iconic figure skater who won gold and silver Olympic medals in 2010 and 2014 respectively, said she was always prepared to fall and controlled her mental health.
I prepared for the worst and imagined making mistakes before the games, all to take care of my mental health. I've always thought that it's okay if things don't go well, and the thought that I can fail anytime helped me relieve the pressure.
Ryu Seung-min, the gold medalist in table tennis at the 2004 Olympics and a member of the International Olympic Committee Athletes Commission since 2016, said it was important not to set limits based on what people say, especially after hard preparations.
Nobody expected me to win, but I had confidence in myself because I had prepared a lot. I could have been low on confidence because people had judged me in that way, but I kept myself thinking, oh, I did well even when I lost. So ironically, it eased the pressure on me.
2018 Olympic skeleton gold medalist Yoon Sung-bin emphasized trying to experience as much as possible to find one's own strengths.
When you are young, it's good to try many different things. I believe that finding one's talent is the hardest task. So, you need to have various experiences to discover what you can excel in.
The Gangwon 2024 Winter Youth Olympics, with South Korea hosting the first ever event in Asia, will run until February 1st. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
In other news, The world's largest cruise ship, dubbed the Icon of the Seas, embarked on its first ever voyage on Saturday. The ship left from Miami for a 7-day trip around Eastern Caribbean. The ship's owner, Royal Caribbean Group, said the 365 meters long cruise ship can host about 7,600 passengers on its 20 decks. The ship runs on liquefied natural gas, known for its lower carbon emissions. However, environmental groups are expressing concerns about its methane emissions, as this gas over 20 years traps at least 80 times more heat than carbon dioxide, which could make global warming worse. Over in Paris, a pair of protesters targeted the Mona Lisa with a soup as part of radical action to advocate better farmer protection. Our Lee Si-hoo reports.
Video footage shows two women hurling soup at the protective glass in front of the iconic Mona Lisa painting in Paris' Louvre Museum on Sunday. Before being led away by security guards, they stood in front of the painting and shouted, "What is more important, art or the right to a healthy and durable diet? And farmers are dying on the job." They are activists representing an organization called Food Response, which shared a statement saying the protest aims to draw attention to the need to protect the environment and sources of food. This came more than a week into protests from French farmers who are demanding better pay and living conditions, and just hours before the French government deployed a large number of security forces around Paris as the angry farmers prepared to mount a siege on the French capital. The farmers are demanding better purchase prices for produce by supermarket and industrial buyers, changes to complex environmental regulations, and the phasing out of a tax break on diesel for farm equipment. Throughout France, farmers' unions have set up roadblocks to increase pressure on the government.
And with all the health and climate issues, the lack of respect for agriculture and farmers, we desire to be able to live with dignity from our profession, and the government will have to listen to us and hear us.
In response, the government announced a series of measures on Friday which included an end to diesel fuel taxes for farm vehicles. France would also remain opposed to the European Union signing a free trade deal with the Mercosur trade group, of which Latin American countries are part, which may result in what farmers say is unfair competition for French farmers. Despite the concessions, major farmers' unions say their protests will continue as the government's plan doesn't go far enough. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Ultrafine dust came back as the cold has eased off. As the atmosphere stagnates and smoke from overseas flows in, the air gradually becomes murky. The dust concentrations in Yeongseo in Gangwon province, as well as the Jeollabuk-do and Gyeongsang-buk-do provinces will also rise tonight. The air is expected to be cloudy tomorrow as the dust accumulates. Please wear a mask for fine dust when you go out. Cloudy skies are expected from tomorrow afternoon. Starting with Jeju Island in the late afternoon, there's rain forecast in Jeollanam-do province from night. As for the amount of rainfall, up to 10 millimeters on Jeju Island and 5 in Jeollanam-do province. Tomorrow's Seoul will start off at -3 degrees Celsius. Daily highs will go up to 7 degrees in Seoul, 10 degrees in Gwangju, Daegu, and Gyeongju. As for Gangwon province, where the Winter Youth Olympic Games are being held, daytime temperatures will get up to around 7 to 9, relatively milder winter weather. In the second half of the week, frequent rain or snow is expected to come around in Yeongdong and Chungcheongbuk-do province and the southern areas. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI headline news. Hope everyone has a great start of the week.